when we think of the classics, of course, there are many ways, legitimate ways, to define classics. And we're going to look at a few definitions as a starting place. But it's important to understand that classics span a broad period of human history. And scholars view classics differently depending on their point of view, their purpose, their agendas, what they're trying to accomplish thereby, and the way that they view the world. So when we think of the classics, we're talking about a broad concept, and I'm going to narrow that down, but realize I'm narrowing that down according to my own perspective of the classics and why I think it is valuable for all people to read in the classics to develop themselves as educated persons. We need to understand, in terms of our second question, who are the most distinguished thinkers that history has to offer us? And by that I mean, of course, we know that much of our history in terms of ideas and the development of ideas has been lost. But we do have classics that come down to us through history, and those classics can be mixed in quality. And so our question becomes then, how do the classics and critical thinking interrelate? It is essential for us and for our students to command the fundamentals of critical thinking in order to use those fundamentals in determining which classics are most worthy of our consideration. And then how do we bring classical thought into our courses, and how do we ask our students, or should we ask our students to do more reading in the classics? Should we do more reading ourselves? Which classics should we focus on? And that is a big part of our question in terms of how to continue to develop our thinking using classical thought. And then we might ask, what is classic in your field of study? And as you know, there is a broad range of literature in every professional domain of thought. And that broad range of material or literature is going to be mixed in terms of quality. Every professional within every field is not thinking at the same level of quality. And it is often, if not usually, the dissenters within a field who are often ostracized by the field who end up developing classics within the field. So you might ask yourself, what is classic in your field of study, and what makes it classic, and how does it stand out from the, let us say, mainstream or frequently the mediocre thinking within the field? These are some background questions we're going to be dealing with as we move through the session. Let us consider some definitions, and I'm pulling these particular definitions from the Oxford English Dictionary. And I'm looking at the term classic, and of course I'm not pulling all of the definitions that we see there. I'm pulling the ones that I see as relevant to our immediate purpose in this session. So, classic means or has been used in the following ways by humans: of acknowledged excellence or importance. So now we're seeing two key terms that will come back again and again in terms of classics: excellence and importance. And we can ask ourselves what we mean by that, but that's a beginning place. And hopefully what is meant by that becomes clearer with the other definitions that we'll see. Second, of the first class of the highest rank or importance, constituting an acknowledged standard or model of enduring interest and value. So, the highest rank within a discipline, within a field, in terms of importance, constituting acknowledged standards of excellence. You could say, well, what are these standards? It depends on the context, it depends on the case, it depends on the classical literature that you're focusing on in terms of what standards will apply or would need to be adhered to, and of enduring interest and value. What makes works of literature or art of enduring interest? Why would we be interested in something historically? And that's going to relate to its importance and its adherence to the highest standards of quality. Another definition from the OED, a work of literature, music, or art of acknowledged quality and enduring significance or popularity. Now we're getting more. We're seeing that the classics come from literature, music, or art. Now, literature is going to be used in a very broad sense, and we'll come back to that. And again, we're seeing some of the same concepts, enduring significance. In extended use, something which is memorable and an outstanding example of its kind. And here, I want to point out that one of the problems with teaching in the way that we currently approach our students is that we frequently fail to present them with outstanding examples of thinking within our fields. And it is those outstanding examples that should be the main focus of our work with students, so they can see the standards that are considered the highest standards within the field, and they can begin to see how to approach those standards themselves. Another definition, an ancient Greek or Latin writer or literary work, all of the first rank and all acknowledged excellence. Any one of a body of ancient Greek or Latin writers or text traditionally considered as a model for all literary endeavor. Now, it's important to recognize that just because something is ancient and it's Greek or Latin, doesn't mean that it's all of the same quality. You can take works, for example, by classic authors such as Plato and Aristotle. Within those works, you're going to find very high quality thinking, and you're going to find some problems in thinking. And often what we say is, instead of saying, let's look at Aristotle and see what is classic in this, what is of the highest value and adhering to the highest standards in this, versus let's read Aristotle and let's take Aristotle seriously. And if Aristotle shows that he's biased or prejudiced, then we're going to just pass over that, and we're going to either ignore that or we're going to see that as valuable thinking. So we must have the tools of critical thinking to distinguish the highest level classics in terms of ancient works and those that are not of the highest quality and often are mixed. And again, this isn't something that we're going to easily figure out without looking at examples. But it is, again, through the tools of critical thinking where we should begin with our students, that they will be able to distinguish the high quality from the low quality thinking within what we consider classics in terms of this last definition, and an ancient Greek or Latin writer or literary work. So just because it's very, very old does not mean it's of high quality.